fantasy baseball drafts going on this weekend and throughout the week before the season starts here Thursday on April 1st. But here's a few pitchers that I'm going to have as sleepers going into your fantasy drafts and just in the season on general. The first guy is Carlos Martinez of the St. Louis Cardinals. So the last couple seasons, Martinez, he's bounced around from a starting pitcher to a reliever, back to a starter, reliever, but now he's back in the starting rotation here for the St. Louis Cardinals. And obviously, we've seen some great seasons throughout his career for Martinez. And this Cardinal team, I think they're going to be good this season. Martinez, he's going to get back into shape and form, that his arm's stretched out, I believe. And he's on a team that could win a lot of ball games when you got two great hitters like Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. And last season, Carlos Martinez, he was 0-3 with 17 strikeouts and a 9.90 ERA and a 2.10 whip in 20 innings. But I'm not going off of last season's stats really here. Last season, it was tough to judge what pretty much most ball players in the major leagues. But Martinez this season, they're projecting him 150 innings, 10 wins, 8 losses, 140 strikeouts with a 4.02 ERA and a 1.29 whip, and 12 quality starts for Martinez. So Martinez, he's a player that I've been seeing in these mock drafts. He's going very late right now. He's going anywhere probably from the 18th to the last round, which is the 23rd round in standard format fantasy league. So he's a guy you definitely could get late in your draft. And I wouldn't be surprised if he wins 12 or 15 games this season. And he's a sleeper to target in your draft. The next guy is Dallas Keuchel of the Chicago White Sox. So Keuchel last season was his first year with the Chicago White Sox, and he was pretty decent last year. And this White Sox team, they are the favorite probably in the AL Central this season, with a lot of weak teams in that division, in my opinion. The Tigers, they're still rebuilding. The Indians, they traded their best player in Francisco Lindor to the New York Mets. And the Twins, they're in the middle of the pack, in my opinion. But anyway, Dallas Keuchel, he's on a good team. They're going to give him a lot of run support. And he's been pretty decent throughout his career, as Keuchel, for the most part. I know that one season he sat out half the year and then signed with the Atlanta Braves. But last season in the offseason, he cashed in, was Keuchel. And last season, he pitched pretty well, no doubt about it. 6-2, 42 strikeouts with a 2 ERA and a 1.09 whip in 63 innings. So he had a great season last year. I know it was only 60 games and he started about 11 or 12 ball games, was Keuchel, but those are big numbers. And like I said, he's on a team that's going to win a lot of ball games. And right now, he's definitely a sleeper. He's going probably 16th round or deeper. I've seen him in some fantasy drafts. And the projections for Keuchel this season, 157 innings, 12 wins, 7 losses, 112 strikeouts, 3.50 ERA, 1.21 whip, and 13 quality starts. Well, Keuchel, yeah, he's not really a strikeout pitcher, but a good ground ball pitcher. And that's what you want, a guy just to get you some outs, get you quality starts, wins, and eat innings. And I think that's what Dallas Keuchel could do this season for the Chicago White Sox and fantasy owners. The next pitcher that's a sleeper this season for fantasy baseball is Patrick Corbin of the Washington Nationals. So Corbin, he signed that big contract a few seasons ago in Washington, and it's been so far an up and down ride for him, but we know what Corbin could do. We've seen it on the Diamondbacks that year. Even though we know it was a contract season, he's definitely capable of pitching good ball games and getting victories, especially that he pitched well when it hit his ballpark where the ball really carries in Arizona. And last season, obviously with Washington, it wasn't a great year for Corbin. 2-7 on the season, a 4.66 ERA, a 1.57 whip, 60 strikeouts, and 6 quality starts in 65 and a half innings. A very rough season for Corbin. But this national team last year, after winning the World Series a couple seasons ago, they were just in a tailspin, and it was tough to get things going in spring training, then cut it back, totally stop, and then pick things up once again. But anyway, Corbin, I think this season he's going to bounce back, even though the projections don't say much. And this national team, they're underrated, in my opinion. They had a pretty good offseason, adding Kyle Schwarber, adding Josh Bell to the lineup, John Lester, Brad Hand at closer. So they got some pretty good players here. And Corbin, I think he's going to bounce back and be a big-time starter that you could plug into your rotation in fantasy as your fourth or fifth guy. And they're projecting him this season 175 innings, 9 wins, 12 losses, 183 strikeouts with a 3.65 ERA, a 1.26 whip, and 13 quality starts. So I think Corbin, the numbers are going to be better than that. I could see him going 13-8 or something with a mid-3 ERA and about 16, 17 quality starts. And right now, he's another guy going late in fantasy drafts, starting from the 13th round or deeper. I've seen him in the mock drafts I've been doing. So Patrick Corbin, he's definitely a sleeper, and he's a pitcher I definitely want to target in the later rounds in my upcoming drafts this week. The next pitcher is David Price of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So David Price last season, he opted out because of the protocols and stuff, and he just said, forget it, I'm going to sit out this season and I'll come back in 2021, and that's what exactly David Price is doing this season. And this Dodger team, once again, they're totally stacked, and David Price as their fourth or fifth starter going into the year. He's going to be a guy that people forget about, and I still think he has a lot left in the tank, believe it or not, and that year off might rejuvenate him or go the other way, but I think it's going to rejuvenate David Price this season. With the year off, he's up there in age, and he's got a great team who's going to give him a lot of run support, in my opinion, is David Price. And Price, this season, they're projecting him 10 wins, 7 losses, a 3.86 ERA, a 1.22 whip, 12 quality starts, and 133 innings. So that's middle of the pack type of numbers, and that's not terrible numbers either, in my opinion. And they're ranking him 231 as his projected rank, and he's going about 16th, 17th round as well, maybe just a little bit earlier in fantasy drafts. But he's a pitcher I definitely want to target on my fantasy team, and I think he's a pitcher that could definitely get the job done and help you out as a back end of the rotation guy for your fantasy roster and your team, and get wins and have a decent ERA. And like I said, he's on the best team in baseball, so I think Price is a definite sleeper, and if you could come out with him in a couple drafts, you're in good shape for a back-end guy in the fifth and final starter. I have as a sleeper this season's Taijuan Walker of the New York Mets. So we saw Walker last season between the Diamondbacks and the Toronto Blue Jays pitch very well after coming off a Tommy John surgery a couple seasons ago. And Walker last year in 53 innings, 4-3 record, 50 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA, a 1.16 whip, and 5 quality starts. So Walker in the offseason, the Mets, they had a hole to fill in the rotation after Trevor Bauer spurned him in the last minute and went to the Los Angeles Dodgers. But Walker, I think he could be just as good as Bauer or even better this season as far as ERA and strikeouts and whip. And I think Walker, he's still a young guy. He got a good 2-year deal for $20 million, so it was a good deal for him and the New York Mets. And the Mets, they got a pretty good offense this season. I know their starting rotation's a little bit in shambles with Carlos Carrasco down and Noah Syndergaard not coming back to June or July this season. But Taijuan Walker, I think he has a good season, and he's a player as well that I've been seeing him go 18th to the 20th round range right now. And the projections for Walker this season, 9-7, 116 strikeouts, a 3.56 ERA, a 1.24 whip, 11 quality starts, but only 124 innings pitched. So they see Walker here on the projections missing about a month or two of the season, and that's definitely possible with his injury history and the Tommy John. But if he stays healthy, I think Walker, he could win 12 to 15 games, have the mid-3 ERA, and pitch about 170, 180 innings, and get about 15 quality starts. So that's a few pitches that you should target in your fantasy drafts as sleepers this week heading into the season.